you never heard of. Hey everybody, welcome to the Common Folk Podcast with Ben, Morgan, and Andy.
What's up, guys?
How we doing?
Welcome to Common Folk.
How's it going?
Pretty good.
I think it's pretty good, right? Changing of the seasons almost. We're just about there.
Yeah. Just before we started here, you were talking about setting up the deer
Yeah, deer feeder. Yeah. We got that refilled, got a new mineral site set, and first night on the trail camera, we got some activity. So,
All right. So when's season?
well, bow hunting starts real short here, September.
Really?
Yeah, and the rifle season, though, that's kind of what we're gearing up for. That's going to serve as a good segue here, right? The rifle season, that's always in November.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought November, but then I thought maybe there was some small window that I didn't know about. But bow is early.
Yep.
Why do they do that?
Well, it's kind of a back and forth deal. Every state does it differently and has the right to do it differently. In Nebraska, our Game and Parks Commission just feels that gives the bow hunters the first crack at it, and it's way tougher to fill a tag bow hunting compared to rifle season.
Okay, that's what I was thinking.
So it's a longer season. You get more opportunities, more days to work with.
It's got to be harder. Okay,
yeah.
Gotcha.
Yep.
So basically, we're giving them a leg up.
Yeah, you could look at it that way. They're definitely going to be out in the field first.
Okay.
So, yeah.
It's crazy to think it's not going to be long. It's going to start cooling off.
Mm-hmm.
Are we out there doing that?
I don't know. I kind of like the fall, though.
Yeah, for sure.
Starting to cool down. Football rolls back around.
I love the fall, but I don't love the winter. So then I start getting in that mindset of, oh, what's next?
You're looking ahead too far.
I know.
There's that sweet spot, right?
We cracked the windows the other day just for like a random
Yeah.
It was
day.
pretty nice, yeah.
It was nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, so no guest today. Back to kind of the platform that we started early on with, where it's just the three of us kind of going through some, what we consider kind of some common sense topics, but a lot of people may not. So we like to kind of put our spin on it and our perspective. And as you said, talking about deer hunting and that, what I wanted to talk about today was surrounding guns. I've heard a few things out there. They keep calling it like gun culture. I don't know that it's necessarily that. Like, I've thought a lot about that. That to me feels like more like you're just all about them. Like everything you do revolves around them and stuff like that. Like for some reason, that's the word culture feels like that to me.
Yeah. Is that what it's meaning to do? Is it trying to put a negative spin on gun ownership?
I kind of have that feeling that, that the way they're publishing it, it's like that. It's like, oh, these people are just all about guns. That's all they want to do. Yeah.
Well, then my real quick follow-up thought that just flashes through my insane brain is, man, that's something that a gun owner might wear with pride. Like, yeah, gun culture right here, boys. Kind of like the Trump supporters.
Okay.
Like, I mean, they'll just pick that up and they will run with it. Like, hell yeah, this is gun culture. This is gun country. And then, then that kind of goes into, okay, now you are being intimidating.
Right.
Okay, now you're giving fuel to the other side there. They're just, more than anything, I feel deathly afraid of guns. Right, wrong, uneducated, educated, whatever. I think that's where that comes into play, and what that your terminology there, Ben, gun culture. I mean, I think that sounds a little aggressive.
I think so too. I was trying to think of a way to name it, and maybe we'll get to something by the end of this, because I couldn't think in my mind what would be a good title for the podcast, but it wasn't really gun culture unless we did a play on that. But it was more kind of like just not even lifestyle. Like, I don't even know what to say, but we'll figure it out as we get into it.
Yeah, I'm just thinking like American culture.
Yeah, yeah, I don't know. The fact is that we're all Midwest born and raised folks, and have had, each one of the three of us have had our own experience with getting to know guns and how they exist and the lifestyle around them.
Right.
So I wanted to talk about that a little bit today, and just kind of give some people that perspective of, this isn't like most people out there are like us, not like all these things that you hear on the radio or on TV or whatever. You know what I mean? Right.
Yeah. There's once again, it kind of gets back to something we've talked about in earlier shows where there's 15% really loud on the extreme right, there's 15% extremely loud on the extreme left, right? And then the majority of people are in the middle there. And I think you're spot on with gun culture. I think even your most, we'll say, liberal, shy away from that type of lifestyle, they still recognize the need for people to have gun ownership. Otherwise, you really do just kind of open the door for some pretty catastrophic things to happen. Not once in the recorded history of humanity has it ever been a good thing in the long run when a government moved in and took away guns. You see Australia going through it right now.
100%, yeah.
And this is one thing that I can't stand, that I feel is disinformation, misinformation. Morgan, do you know the difference between those two words?
No.
I don't
they
either.
sound the same.
Gee whiz, what are we even talking about here? But with the Australian thing, you'll hear a stat like, well, murders by guns have gone down 85% since the government took away all guns. Okay, but armed robberies have gone up 120%. What are we doing here? They don't have to shoot anybody because they don't have to fire back because no one's even allowed to protect themselves and their property. Their right to life, their right to live. And that's where I have a big problem with anyone trying to take my gun out of my hands, So
I think that's where most of these conversations usually end up going, is to self-defense and crime and so on and so forth. That's usually where the conversations around guns go. But really the bigger conversation, what's going on way more than all of that, is the recreation and the sport and the lifestyle of the hunting and it just being something that you grow up around. So we'll certainly the self-defense piece, and that is something that I want to get into a little bit. But to start with, what I want to get into is I wanted each one of us to take a couple of minutes to talk about, what do you remember as your first interaction, how you were introduced, and kind of how you felt about that, and then what it turned into for you. So, Andy, if you want to start with that.
Well, my first real experience, or the memory that I always kind of go back to, was when I was 12 years old, and for Christmas, best day on the planet, right? And we burned through all of our gifts, and we're just happy as all can get out, me and my two younger brothers. And Dad's like, "Where didn't you get something else?" I'm like, nah, I think we got them all. And you're like, "Oh, my bad." And he forgot to put a brand new bolt action 22, beautiful wood stock, had a red look to it. And I just knew exactly what it was as soon as he came out with that long, skinny box, And so I tore into that. And that afternoon, that's just a memory I'll never lose. Me and Dad walked up the Ponca Creek behind our farmstead, and we just, shot cans, sighted it in, and it's just something that stuck with me forever. And so that's my first experience, is that bonding scenario with my father. So it has nothing to do for me with, in that moment, self-defense, anything other than family. That's all I think of when I think of that 22 and Christmas.
Do you still have that gun?
You better believe it.
Yeah.
Yes, I do. And I'm actually planning on we were pretty rough on stuff growing up, me and my brothers.
Yeah.
I'm planning on refinishing it, rebluing the barrel, the whole 9 yards. So it's on the honey-do list of my little projects that I have.
Do you know off the top of your head what model it was?
It's from Canada.
Really?
It's, I think, a leaf field or something like that. It wasn't and that goes to another point. It wasn't an expensive brand.
Yep.
It was just a bolt action that had a 10-shot clip that slipped out of it. I know the clip. I bought an extra clip for it, and it was manufactured by Savage Firearms. That's one of the bigger ones. So I don't know if Mayfield
Savage
or Leafield.
Bottom or something.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. It's probably one of their under.
Yeah.
So can you use it still?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh yeah,
it's fine, but you just want to make it.
I want to restore it and make it kind of
okay.
Get back to the look that it had when I opened it up on Christmas.
Yeah.
So from there, do you feel like it kind of sparked something in you that made you feel like, man, I really enjoy this sport and I want to learn more about it? And then what happened next?
For me, it really brought me into, and this sounds weird, and I get it, But it made me just appreciate nature even more because we were out in it. We were walking up and down the Ponca Creek, and I just loved being out there.
Mm-hmm.
And the 22, this little rifle, was nothing more than just a tool to be able to experience that.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, I get it, like, oh, you love deer, but then why do you shoot them to death? And
Right.
It's like, well, no, that's such a small part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the best part of every deer season is going home, seeing my brothers, seeing my dad, getting to deer camp, having a few beers the night before, waking up, having that early breakfast. Those are the things that matter most to me. And, now that I kind of look back at it, it probably started with, that my experience, my personal experience with that 22.
And there's 100 reasons. I mean, I think we're going to go through that in another podcast, but as to why the harvesting of that animal makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
But what you're touching on, what we're talking about here is that whole experience and what all that brings. So if you fast forward to today and you've gone through all that, what does your gun cabinet look like now?
Full. We need another one.
Yeah.
You're running out of space.
And it's not even so much. You won't believe it's not even so much me because I'm a simple man. So I got my deer rifle.
Mm-hmm.
I got my handgun. I got my other handgun. I got my other deer rifle. I'm good to go. Okay.
Yeah. Shotgun.
Yeah. I got a couple shotguns.
Yeah.
But Ashley, believe it or not, she got into. I introduced her to hunting. She freaking loved it. She's crazy about it now. She actually got into the sports side of it. So she'll go do those 3-gun competitions. So she has a tricked out automatic shotgun, a couple 9mm Glock 17s, all part of that goes into that side of things, which I never got into that. I still don't. That's more her bag.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a lot of fun, though. I've tagged along and went through a couple of the, I don't even know what you want to call them, not classes. I got to carry conceal permit and all that stuff. But the courses, the competitions, they're fun. Like I could get into them. It's just, it never really turned me on. I fall more into the recreational. I'll go to the range or maybe to a place to throw some blue rock and I'm good to go.
Yeah.
It's more kind of like for you, from the sounds of it, the gun is a tool. It's a means to an end of something else that you're trying to achieve, as opposed to it being your.
It's just part of it. It's just part of it. It's nothing more, nothing less. I have some really nice firearms, but that's really not what it's about. I don't need a $2,000 shotgun to get the experience that I'm looking for. In fact, I got a couple $250 shotguns that I bought way back in the day. Sometimes I just prefer to use that.
Yeah, they probably work just as good.
Exactly.
Did you go through hunter safety when you were a kid?
Oh, yeah. Yep. My dad was an instructor.
Oh, cool.
Oh, he was?
Yeah. So, a real small class, my dad and some of my friends, fathers that were kind of in the same situation, that coached together, they got together and decided to get their instructor's license. And about every 3 years, when you got another crop of 50, 60 kids that would need it, they would teach the class.
Huh.
So
I don't know how many people know that. And I don't know what it's like in other states, but here in Nebraska, I think once you get to 12,
I think it's 12.
You're required to take it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what the classes are like today. I've heard from a couple of different people. They sound like they're still pretty decent, but I remember doing it when I was that age.
Yeah.
And it was really one of the greatest classes that I ever took in terms of safety in the field, where they showed you how to handle the gun, how to hand it over a fence crossing,
right?
What to be looking at, where to be pointing, all these kinds of things, and it was great for me.
Yeah, it really is, and you always have to handle a gun, a firearm, whatever, like it's loaded, like it's ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
Is if you never point that barrel where a catastrophic event couldn't happen, nothing catastrophic will happen. You just always have to have barrel awareness, and that. But like you said, Ben, they really hammer that home and make you realize that early on.
They do, for sure. So, Morgan, what about you? What do you remember? What your in your story will obviously be a whole lot different. First time you were around or exposed or got curious or anything like that?
I don't really remember the first time, honestly, because we grew up in the city. just a different lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
I do remember always seeing my dad's gun in the closet, sitting there. Obviously not loaded, never even knew where the bullets were, just younger. But then obviously hanging out with you and, you being around it and introducing me to things. I guess that would definitely be my first experience. But I mean, you bought me my first handgun, shotgun, right? Like, I don't have that story that Andy has. So not that I feel like I'm missing out. I mean, I think that would have been great, but we just didn't live that lifestyle to do that. I had 2 sisters. Again, my dad would go hunting randomly, I think. I don't even know what he shot. Has he ever told you that? Did he ever? Oh, okay. So I don't even know that. It just wasn't a part of my growing up, but I also wasn't super curious about it. And so I don't know.
So when you saw his, was it a shotgun or a handgun that you'd see in the closet?
A shotgun.
A shotgun?
Yeah.
Did it make you feel safe, afraid, or just straight up indifferent?
Totally indifferent. Like it just wasn't even a thing to me. I guess I should have probably asked, like, why is this here? I don't know. Maybe I didn't care.
No, I feel a lot of things are like that, where now it's a big deal and we have to talk about it. We got to tell our kindergartners to talk about it. And back in the day, man, it just wasn't a thing. We all...
You see the pictures and the videos of kids. I mean, they were in school before we were, where they're shooting in gym class.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and it was fine then.
When I was in grade school, the old cool kids, they would pull up to high school, the ones that lived out of town, and a lot of times they would shoot a coyote or something.
Straight out of the
on the way into
field
school.
next to school, yeah.
Yeah. So, and they would go to the office and want to call the local fur bearer to see what the fur was worth.
Oh my gosh, no way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm from the
and
sticks.
that's kind of part of the problem. I'd get back to what Morgan says here in a second, but it's like there's so much attention put on it now where it's like where it was one of those things where like it used to just kind of be like whatever, and nobody cared and nobody got worked up and nobody was scared and nobody did anything stupid. I mean, obviously some things are going to happen here and there, but now it's like there's so much attention put on it that it's almost like it amplifies the negativity of it.
Yeah,
because
it really
of all that
does.
additional attention.
It really does. And I mean, I remember the NBA team, the Washington Bullets, now known as the Washington Wizards. Their owner changed the name because, oh man, bullets are bad.
Oh gosh.
No, bullets are the reason we have a freaking country.
Yeah.
We defend our country with bullets.
Yeah.
And he's just sending them unprompted, which I'm sure he got pressure here or there, but this was a long, long time ago. And it's like, really, that's what you're thinking. Bullets are bad.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, no, it was
there's bad people that use bullets.
Yeah.
Okay. But that's really where it starts and ends with me.
Right. Yeah.
I think, back to Morgan's story, this is the reason why I want to talk about this, because I'm sure there's a lot of people listening that have the same experience. So it's not about like, oh, this guy's way more experienced or this guy got into it earlier or whatever, because a lot of people didn't. And it's important to understand how kids in America are coming up and what their exposure is to it. So that story that you have is a story of, I would think, a whole lot more kids than the story that Andy and I have, because that's fewer and further between.
Right.
In the more populated areas, in the suburbs and so on and so forth, the people have the stories like what you have.
Yeah. Probably. I mean, it just being around it more now and being out here in the country and around guns now, it seems odd that that's the story. But when you say it like that, that's probably true, honestly.
Yeah, I was just looking up a couple of numbers online earlier, and it, depending on where you read, it's anywhere from, it's roughly around 40% or so say that they're gun owners, and there's probably some people not being honest and not divulging, but of the U.S. population. So if you think about that, if that's accurate, the majority of the U.S. population is not. So, you've got that.
Yeah.
It kind of goes back to that story that you have, like, your father was a gun owner but never really used it, may have known where the shells were, may not have. It was probably almost like the guy that goes and golfs once every other year.
Exactly. And you'll get invited to that, just
Yeah.
your group
Yeah.
of friends. Like one guy's going pheasant hunting, sweet place up in South Dakota.
Yep.
Get your shotgun and go. I mean,
Right.
it's a blast. So that's probably more or less what was going on there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, actually, when you say it like that, it probably is like that. Going to play, you have a racket to go play tennis, or you have golf clubs, but you don't use it that often. But now there's so much surrounding guns, and it's a thing, and it just makes it such a big deal, and it really
Right.
wasn't back then. It
Right.
wasn't. So, but I do remember you in high school. I mean, obviously, we'll ask you the same stuff, but shooting clays and being on the trap team and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
that was interesting to me. And honestly, I really enjoy doing that now.
Oh, isn't
I'm
it
not
fun?
that great at it because it's hard for me to get into sight real quick, but I really love doing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's
So-
fun. Yeah, there's a lot of fun activities around
So
it.
what was yours first experience? Like, do you remember your dad coming
Yeah.
home? Were you getting that gift? Was it a hand-me-down? Or was it brand new? What was that
I
story?
mean, as far as guns go, like my first experience was because my dad was a police officer.
Yeah, that's true.
So he always had one on his belt. So, you'd see him walking around with it and seeing it, that gun, that duty weapon changed throughout the years of what he was carrying, from an older revolver to, a modern semi-automatic.
Because he was in for how many years and then retired?
35 or something
So-
or more. Yeah.
The force gave him different.
Yeah, and each police department's different. I think
Oh.
they were buying them. So I think he owned it, or either he bought it after it was kind of like decommissioned or whatever. But in one way or another, he owned it. But yeah, the police department, in most police departments, will tell their guys, "Hey, here's your options. Which one do you want?" And
Oh,
it's limited
okay.
to a certain, usually.
Okay.
But every police department's different. But that was my first experience. Seeing that, definitely having some curiosity around just being a young boy. Seeing those guns, it was fun. We all had toy guns.
Oh, yeah.
We're running around doing that kind of stuff. My first was definitely a BB gun. I did a lot of playing with a BB gun out here in the country.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I had countless hours of going through the woods and seeing a leaf that looked like it was a perfect target and shooting at it, or whatever.
Just by yourself, walking around,
Oh, yeah.
shooting
Oh,
stuff.
yeah. I'm in the same realm there. And you probably graduated from like a Red Ryder, lever action,
Yeah,
one
yeah.
pump,
Yeah.
to like the 10 pump to the 10 pump pellet gun.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, yeah, I've been there too, but that 22 is what's really stuck with me, and that's where I felt like that was my first quote unquote firearm.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Rifle.
And I learned so much from that BB gun in terms of just handling the gun, doing dumb stuff, walking around in the woods, with the muzzle down and shoving it in the dirt because I slipped, and then it's packed and it won't shoot anymore, and just learning those kinds of things where it's like, these are all the things that you have to think about when you're out doing this, So yeah, that, and then outside of that, it was my grandfather, because he came up as a hunter out of necessity to
Yeah.
feed the family.
Right.
So he had your typical hunting guns, the shotguns and the high caliber rifles for big game. Maybe a couple of like just real basic pistols, but I don't even really remember seeing those. It was all long guns. And then I got to an age where he decided, I'm going to start handing some of these things down to you. So my first two, what you would say like real guns, like you're talking about, was a 22. Winchester, I don't remember what model.
Does it have the side? You put the bullets in through the side?
You put the bullets in the back of the stock.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
so you pull that out,
Oh,
pull
yeah,
that tube
yep.
out, load them that way. Shot the heck out of that gun. Old scope on it. Learned my first experience with the scope and learning how to dial all that in. Thing was a tack driver. And then my godfather, who was also a police officer with my dad, gave me my first shotgun, single shot, 20 gauge. And that's what I hunted with first.
Oh, okay.
So I still have all of those. They'll get handed down to our kids. But those were my first experiences. And then just getting into the sport, and out there with the shotgun dove hunting, with the 22, 22 gauge, 20 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 gauge squirrel hunting, and just learning the game. Did the hunter safety, and then just graduated to the next level, and eventually, like you said, high school, shooting trap in high school. That was a ton of fun.
Yeah, you actually have a couple different experiences there, all kind of meshing into one.
Mm-hmm.
Where your father's, with the force, so those are military grade handguns.
Mm-hmm.
Then your grandfather and others, they're more in the outdoors. So, it was really just a natural thing for you then, because you're just seeing it as a necessity in this realm, in that realm, and everywhere else.
Yeah.
But
And
that's so far different than most people's experiences. So.
Yeah, it's got to be.
And with Dad carrying the gun every day, just seeing that as an everyday tool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'd say that I was a very curious little boy in terms of I want to shoot that thing. I want to get it out. I want to learn how this works. These kinds of things. But also the fact that I had so much exposure to it just on a day to day. It was kind of like, yeah, okay, yeah, it is what it is.
Right.
So then how did your dad tame that? I mean, he talked to you about it and you just knew not to grab it, or you know what I mean? What was that? Okay.
Yeah. And when we moved out here, when I was real young, just target shooting in the backyard and whatever else, Dad would come out and, help with that, and we'd do it. And I thought it was the coolest thing ever. I had a ton of fun with it. I
remember a police officer, and I don't believe I think it was a county sheriff, but we were all real little. I want to say I was a fourth grader or something, maybe. Yeah, right around that age. So I can't quite remember all of this. But, and I don't even think it was part of hunter safety. It was for some get to know your officers or some type of thing. We're down at the community hall, and he went on this talk about how dangerous handguns really are. You can't just be wielding them around, pointing them at things like those movie characters that are pointing the gun at you, like this. That's not real. You can't do that. And he even touched on suicide. Mm-hmm. He's like, even if you're just dillying around and you point that at your head and you pull the trigger, it's over. Don't worry about coming back. Don't worry about this. It's over. So if you want to end your life, do that. And I'm like, Jesus Christ.
And you remember that.
Yeah, I remember, he's scared I don't know. I don't want to say he scared the hell out of me, but man, it stuck with it. Yeah. Jesus, he's, and and I think the main thing there is not that I was thinking of committing suicide, but if you're just toying around doing this, you could actually end your buddy's life, end your own life.
Right.
And so sometimes, and I feel like that's lost a lot of times in modern day culture, just being stern and just telling it how it is. Look, you do that. And by not telling the truth, by not just being upfront, you're leaving a lot of curiosity out there, or you're leaving a lot of gray space there for people to actually be scared of firearms. If you know what's going on, then you don't have to be scared of it. Mm-hmm. I guess that's what I'm getting at there.
And that's what when I was talking about earlier, where you'd see the pictures and the videos of these kids shooting these guns in gym class. Mm-hmm. I mean, that kind of exposure, our kids today are not getting that. So like you said, getting that curiosity out, that wonder of how this works or what's going to happen or whatever, and when that instruction is going on, having someone that is forward enough to be able to say those things like that, Deputy said to you guys. Yep. And there's a lot of folks out there today like that, doing that. Yeah. It's just that it feels more like in the more populated areas, the bigger schools and so on and so forth, it's not.
Or it gets condemned a little bit. It gets sounded out.
Yeah.
How dare you say something like that to my son, little Johnny here?
Yeah.
No, yeah. Johnny needs to hear that.
Yeah.
Right.
Damn it.
Yeah.
But I think so for the one that's living in the city, my brain was just thinking about this. If you don't have a ton of experience with guns, you want your kid to, well, no one's technically supposed to be shooting a handgun till what age? So then you basically do they have these classes or courses for kids? Probably not for a handgun. So then that means you need to go do this with a rifle. So what's the answer? For someone that doesn't actually own a gun that wants their kid to get experience. I don't know.
Based on what I've seen, most organizations aren't wanting a kid to be handling or shooting a gun until they're about around that 12 age. Yep. And And I think, every kid's different. Like some of them are grown up enough to be able to do that when they're 8.
Yeah.
And some are probably not until they're 15. Obviously there's a lot of differences between people, but I think people, like you said, in the city environment, they just have to search out local organizations that provide that kind of thing.
And something that's kind of turned into just a monster around here in Nebraska anyway. And I wasn't real aware of it because, I went to a smaller school. So what we did was limited. You had track and field in the spring, football in the fall, basketball in the winter, right?
Yeah.
Baseball in the summer. So there's more opportunities, when you get to Class B, Class A, and that's considered 5A or 4A for our surrounding states around us for a comparison. But Nebraska hosts the trap, shoot, and skeet finals and one of the biggest meets for high schoolers. And some of our teams are elite. Mm-hmm. And these are women's teams too.
That'd be fun to see.
Here in Omaha, that have some great teams way out west in the Panhandle, McCook, Scottsbluff, they have excellent teams. The Kearney area has a number of really good high school teams. And like I'm saying, boys and girls. And they compete on a national level. And they also host some of the biggest meets in the nation. So pretty cool deal, but that's a great way, that I think gun culture has gone about introducing firearms and teaching our youth how to be safe, how not to be scared, and God damn it, how to protect yourself too. Mm-hmm. Real quick story. You probably get the journal from the NRA too, or not?
Yeah.
And there's always that front page, stories of when guns do come into play in self-protection, mm-hmm. and they do it right. And this was years ago in Montana. A little 12-year-old girl was left home alone, and she was really good. I mean, she was like top 10, top 20 in the nation as far as her age as shooting skeet, shooting Blue Rock. And a guy tripped out on meth, broke into the house, started running up the stairs, and she told him, "Don't come up the stairs or you will get it." And he said, "I'm coming." And she got down on one knee, placed it perfectly, blasted the dude, killed him.
Really?
But God damn it, I think if she wouldn't have had that wherewithal, if she wouldn't have known how to protect herself, what could have happened there?
Yeah.
Like, God dang,
Yep.
And not, but you like what you're saying, Ben, not everybody is ready for that.
Yep.
And who knows how she's doing right now, like her mental health, like that would affect me.
Yep.
Oh, for sure.
But she's alive.
But she's alive, and I'd rather have her alive than some junkie.
And she's alive, potentially struggling with how that went down.
Yep.
But she'll get past it. But she's not struggling with having gotten beat up,
right? Or
even worse, raped or whatever.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the fact.
That is a fact.
I think back to that original question, Morgan, that you were asking. People want to. There's people who probably want to learn more.
I think so.
And they don't know where to go and what to do. It's, I think, like anything else, but for some reason with guns in particular, it's intimidating to try to figure out where do you start.
And it's an odd intimidation because I don't feel the people that own guns are the ones that are intimidating. I really don't.
Yeah.
I don't feel that way. There might be some aggressive bumper stickers or stuff like that out there. Yeah. Second Amendment T-shirts and stuff like that.
Again, that's the 15%, that you talked about in the beginning.
Exactly.
I think what's intimidating is like, where do you start? And I know there's a local gun store down here or a Cabela's or a Bass Pro or whatever. Mm-hmm. And what am I going to do? Am I going to go to the gun counter and start asking questions? I don't know what to ask. Are they going to make me feel like a fool? And a lot of people, unfortunately, do.
I mean, honestly, that's like I wouldn't just go. I don't know. It's intimidating to me. I wouldn't just go to Cabela's, and I've been around it for years with you. I still just don't know some of probably the basic things, and I don't love that. So back to your point, yes, it can be intimidating, and where do you start? So
people have to.
I relate to that.
You just have to decide, like, if it's something that you really want to do. Unfortunately, this is all there is to it. If it's something that you really want to learn about, you just have to stay persistent and figure out how to learn about it. And find people who are in your neighborhood, are in your friend circle, whatever. There's probably more of them than you realize that, as you said, Andy, are gun owners and are willing and excited to share their knowledge and their experience.
Right.
You know.
Right. I mean, that was a big part of why I, made Chasing the Dream TV, our hunting and fishing show.
Yeah.
So I could share that experience with as many people that I can get to tune in. And my favorite episodes that we do is when we take kids out hunting or fishing. Or, we try to take, first-time women out hunting, get them their first experience. That, for me, is, like, more exciting a lot of times than me getting a big buck or whatever or tagging out. But getting to see people's reaction to their first deer or the first turkey, whatever. Mm-hmm. It's almost magical. I can't even explain it.
Or even just their first time out shooting.
Yeah.
Like just getting a feel for
fun.
that and hitting a target for the first time and getting close and, all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's just, it's fun. Anytime I get the chance to do that, like it comes up in general conversation sometimes when you're hanging out with people, someone who's not a gun owner, there's a lot of interest in having, pistols for self-defense, but they just don't know where to start. And then they realize, oh, wait, this guy knows a little bit, and I'm by no means an expert. I just know, just from what we've done. I'm not formally trained or anything. And I love to talk to them about it and share with them and show them my experience and take them to the gun room and show them, here's all the different ones that I have and how these work, and let's go out on the range and put all this together and teach you how to be as safe as possible and try all these things out and see how it feels for you and see if you're comfortable or if you're not, and that's what people need.
Oh, yeah. And how many people have you, just straight up turned on to shooting blue rock, shooting skeet, and then they go out and buy their own shotgun?
Yeah, right.
I mean, I can think of a couple of my really good buddies in college that they grew up in Omaha, met them in college, and they just thought my lifestyle was a hoot. Here's this guy throwing calves, working cows and stuff. And then I took them to a range here in Omaha. We just, pull and it throws the, that disc out there. And I mean, I don't know if there's a better feeling than just shattering that.
It's so
right?
fun.
Yeah. And I'm like, all right, well, that's going. He goes, well, you got another box of shells? Could we stay for another hour? And I mean, I can think of a couple of guys just off the top of my head that I turned on to such a point to where they went out and bought their own 12 gauge. So
it's 100% one of those sports, one of those activities where you got to find some kind of mentor and then, kind of get slowly into it and learn, because there is a lot to learn.
It does. It makes me feel more comfortable when I'm with you. There's no way I would just go do it by myself yet. Yay, good for Ashley. Like, she's all about it, can do it. But there was probably that period when she first started that she didn't. And that's definitely where I'm at. I'm not saying I'm going to be going any competitions or anything soon, but I still would love to get a deer, use it more, feel more comfortable. And I mean, honestly, the girls and Joel, they enjoy it. I definitely think Elise does a little bit probably more than Haley, but maybe she's had more experience with it. And Joel just loves.
Well, and that kind of goes to the point of it's not for everybody
with their age.
Yeah,
that's true.
Haley, our middle daughter,
That's
she'll go out and she'll shoot, and that's whatever. She kind of does it here and there, but it's not something she gets excited about. She's not really into it,
right?
And it's like that's like anything else. Like,
she's 17. It's
not everybody. This isn't for everybody.
No,
you know what I mean. But it needs to be accessible. And that kind of brings me to my next question. Before we move on to anything else that you guys want, we talked about how you got introduced and how you learned about them and so on and so forth. I'm curious about the next generation. So what is your plan, if you have one, or if you've thought about it much, or maybe you've already started, to introduce your children to the firearms?
Because your kids are younger.
right.
Your oldest is how old?
Gee whiz. He just started his first day of first grade.
So he's probably what?
Okay.
Six?
Turning
Yeah.
7.
Okay, I
So
was gonna
he's-
say
he's
7.
early.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Little guy. But man, he really does just love the outdoors. Like this kid, we can't get him out of there. He just always wants to be in the woods. His new thing is he likes watching YouTubers that have like fishing nets and go to ponds and catch minnows and stuff, and then look at them. And then he goes out and he does that, which I'd rather him do that than watch YouTube.
Yeah.
So I bought him a net. So go get it. Go get it. So I already think there's that curiosity factor in there and that love for the outdoors where it's going to be pretty easy for me when he's a sixth grader, when he's turning 11 or 12, for me to, have a 22 or some kind of a small caliber, rifle under the tree.
But will you take him out with you to experience it without a gun? before then,
Well,
or
Well, yeah, I mean,
Okay.
we're already in, we already enjoy the outdoors, and
Yeah.
we do a lot of fishing, already. So that's where I'm coming from, is I think he already has that love for the outdoors. And, Ashley, she's a biologist and all
Yeah.
that stuff, so she's all into it as well. So, I mean, my plan is just do what my father did, I guess.
okay,
Yeah.
And I think, and if he doesn't take to it and he's not big into pheasant hunting or deer hunting, whatever, that's like
Right.
you guys said, everybody's
It's
their own
fine.
person. It's fine.
yeah.
Yep. Does he have you experienced like any curiosity with the guns at all?
He
at his
freaking loves
age?
Nerf guns and
Yeah.
water guns. He loves them.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
But does he ever see like the real guns and ask you about it, or come around if
Yeah.
you're cleaning or you come home from a hunt or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, he's a curious
Mm-hmm.
boy, and that's where that's a responsibility on us.
Mm-hmm.
Like, good God, he wants to always be breaking into my office and then get into the safe, So,
Mm-hmm.
like that's a responsibility that you have to have as a gun owner, to make sure that your safe is closed and locked and this
Right.
and that. But damn it, Ozzy, he'll the one time it's not, he figures it out.
But that's what people have to
You know?
realize, from a gun ownership standpoint, and most responsible gun owners do,
Mm-hmm.
is that it doesn't really matter what you think your kid knows or doesn't know, or what they're into or not into. Like, those things have to be locked up or secured in one way or another, because you just never know. I mean,
Yeah.
they might have a buddy over that feels completely different than they do, and you don't realize it. Or, there's 100 different scenarios.
There really is, and I mean that's part of the hunter safety course that,
Mm-hmm.
that is so invaluable. And I mean there's going to get to a point here, and it's still down the road, but I mean we're going to have to teach Ozzy how to load a gun, load a handgun,
Absolutely, yeah.
and if it's just him and his two little sisters at home, and we're out or we're working, I got a late game, whatever. I mean he's got to be able to be like that little girl in Montana,
Yeah.
and protect himself.
Yeah.
Have
know?
that confidence.
Yes.
That control.
Yep.
Those kinds of things.
Be
Yeah.
measured, understand what's happening, understand what's going on.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean that makes me feel better, as a parent.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
with Joel's, our boys, he's 11, almost 12. So he's at that age we're talking about. So when did you purchase his gun? And I do remember you taking him in the field just to learn to carry it with blanks.
Yeah, he's
Right?
been into guns a whole
A
lot
long
more
time.
than the girls
Yeah.
ever were.
And is that, do you think, a boy thing? I don't want to be like, oh,
I think
boy,
in
girl,
general, in general it is.
Okay.
I mean
that's what I'm thinking,
I mean,
but-
you're not going to say 100% one
Yeah.
way or another, but in general, it seems that boys, and it's probably again like how they're brought up. There's probably a whole nother story behind that. Like they get
there's
Nerf
a big
guns,
set.
and
I could run down a big
Yeah,
like, okay. Yeah.
runway here.
but regardless, he's had a lot of interest in that and always has. So, for me, yes, he got a BB gun at a very young age, and he was shooting those. And then his first that we bought was a 410 Mossberg pump, small youth gun, that when he got it, it was really even too long for him being a youth gun.
It was.
He had trouble holding it up.
A little too heavy.
Yeah.
But you knew that. I remember you saying that.
Yeah, I just wanted him to get a feel for like the action and how it works and all the moving pieces and all that. So we did. And then after about a year or so where he had the strength to carry it and hold it and so on and so forth, we would go out bird hunting and I'd let him carry that gun, but we would load those, they call them like snap caps.
Yeah. Yep.
So that you can pull the trigger and you can cycle the gun and pull the trigger again if you need to and cycle the gun or whatever, so he could get used to that action.
Yep.
But really it was more about getting used to carrying that thing in the field.
Yeah.
Because I remember him coming home and being like, ooh, it's kind of heavy. Or like,
Yeah. So we'd
you
go
know.
through all that. We'd be walking the field.
Hey, you like a tired Joel, right?
yeah.
That's
Right.
good.
100%. And I'd have
Wear 'em out.
I'd have my eye on him, and if I saw anything, I'd be like, "Hey,
Yeah. Get
you
that
know,
barrel
watch
down.
where that's pointing.
Yeah.
Yep, watch what you're doing here. Keep an eye on that. Watch for that hole there, because if you trip and you fall and you hit the trigger, and just going through all that stuff, but knowing all well that it was in a safe,
Yeah.
environment.
Yeah.
But that's just how we've chose to do it. And now he, he shoots trap here and there. He does a decent job at it.
I was going to say, he better be a state champion, right? At least a qualifier, right?
Yeah, hopefully.
Trap team.
Yeah,
That would
Here
be
we go.
cool. Yeah. I think he wants to. I mean, he's talked about it, but
and
that's
it's
in
time. It's time for his next gun, like to graduate from that little 410, and to take the hunter safety course and start really getting into it. So I'm excited to see what happens with that.
And you already laid such a great foundation with the BB guns, and you just reminded me of like when I was 10, 11, 9 years old. I got to tag along with Dad and the boys or deer season, but they let me take my pellet gun.
Yeah.
And one guy that we picked up from here to take him there, help him out. He's like, "Oh, I see you got another deer rifle in here," and it was just my really nice BB gun. I'm like, "Hell yeah!"
Because he thought it was so cool.
Yeah, because he thought it was a deer rifle.
Oh my gosh, you thought you were cool too.
I was one of the boys in that moment. I was one of the boys.
That's funny. So, I mean, from a hunting standpoint and the family and stuff like that, that's all of the stuff that I really had. Did you guys have anything else that came up that you were thinking about?
I will say that for folks that are curious and maybe just want to learn more and maybe even get into it a little bit, or just have the peace of mind to have a handgun or a shotgun in their home, a lot of that stigma where you used to go to a shooting rink or a gun store and you would kind of get the cold shoulder or looked at sideways, a lot of that's gone now. It's a very welcoming community. I can think off the top of my head 2 or 3 joints here in the greater Omaha area that they're very welcoming. There's no stupid questions. They're not going to make you feel dumb. So if you know nothing, I would just, like you said, Ben, do a little bit of homework, maybe pick out a shooting alley, a rink or whatever, or your local community outdoor gun store, and they won't, for the most part, most of these people are really welcoming, and they know that education is the big thing. So I wouldn't be as intimidated now as maybe I would have been 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah, it's becoming more widespread for sure. Yeah, I'd agree with that.
How's the bullet situation? Because, right, there was like the whole... I mean, are those coming back around, or is it still hard to find?
I mean, I think it's
depending on the
better
gun
today than it was
like a year ago or a year and a half. Okay, I mean, I don't know enough about that, so that's why I was asking with that.
It is a lot better now.
Okay.
Than it was, and we talked a little bit, pre-pod about the 80-20 rule. How 20% of the people consume 80% of this good or that good or whatever. And it goes for everything. Buying new cars, buying alcohol, whatever, 20% does that. So I feel like 20% of, some of the gun owners kind of hoard a lot of the ammunition out there.
Yeah.
So there was that happening. And then in 2020, everything was out for a while.
Right.
So that was also a big part of it.
Okay.
And now I feel like everything's kind of gotten back.
It does. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, I just didn't know for like people thinking there's still not a ton of bullets. Oh, it's going to be expensive, or I'm wasting my neighbors or whatever. So that was where kind of my head went.
Like anything else, I mean, it is expensive right now.
Mm-hmm. It is.
It all costs way more than it used to.
Okay. Yeah.
But there is a little bit more
Well, and so
availability.
does everything else. But yeah. Okay.
Yeah. The availability is back.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Yep. Last thing I have here to kind of close out on is we touched on a little bit the kind of the self-defense piece, and I wanted to know what kind of your perspective is, Andy, on like concealed carry and just the whole self-defense thing in general. I mean, I think you've touched on it through this podcast, so folks probably get it, but what do you think about that?
Well, on my extreme end, I wish everybody carried all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I think the safest place in Omaha right now is down at that Seymour Smith Park where the fellas are shooting Blue Rock right now. Mm-hmm. And they even serve beer there. So after you go out, shoot a box or two, you can sit down and have a beer. And the place that I took a couple of my buddies to for the first time, and they're at that stage where they're still like on the edge, like, oh, the guns are bad. And they're like, oh my God, all these guns, somebody could get robbed. I'm like, this is the last place you're going to get robbed, buddy.
Yeah.
And then he thought about it. I could just see it working. Like, you're right. Like no one's going to rob a guy with a shotgun that knows how to use it, let alone an entire hall full of guys with shotguns. So I feel like, what's that saying? A well-armed society is a polite society. Mm-hmm. So I'd like more people to be out there with a carry conceal. I love a lot of things about Texas. I hate their football teams. But as far
Right.
as their carry conceal and their open carry type laws, I like what Texas has going on in that regard, and I wish more states would come around to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So do you carry once in a while? I mean, same with you, Ben. I mean,
When
it just depends.
When I worked a day job in Omaha and I had to be bouncing around all the place and work with the public, I carried every day.
You did.
I did.
Okay.
And I had an Under Armour type of undershirt, and it had a holster here and here on each side. And I just had one little 9mm that was loaded with like 10 rounds, self-defense rounds. And if ever we got sent to like an area of the town, or we had to work with a demographic of people that were like, we don't know, I always got on that. I was always put on that call. And I know that's why, was because they knew that I was a carry conceal guy. And if something were to go south, at least I would be able to help our team out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So
I think my perspective is very similar to yours, that I think everyone should explore that 100%.
Mm-hmm.
I think that you need to explore it, and you need to spend a bunch of time training and really getting to know that weapon before you actually go to the actual concealed carry. Like, go to the concealed carry class and get it done, because I'm telling you, I've been through a couple of them. Anybody can pass it. Okay, it's not that tough. You sit there, you do your test, you listen to the instructor. Depending on what instructor you get, there's a lot of really good ones. There's probably a lot of them that blow through it. But just from that class, what I want to tell people is that you are not ready to start carrying a weapon.
And you told me that. I remember that.
Yeah.
Not thinking I thought I could carry,
Yeah.
but that
Yeah.
was really good that you said that.
If you have a background in it, if you came up and all this, and then you're just taking the class as a formality because you already know,
Right.
are comfortable, fine. But if you're one of these people that's new getting into it, which a lot of people are, and 100% encourage it, take that class, get through that, get your weapon, get some shooting, and then spend time before you start carrying.
But when you say spend time, explain what that is. To me, you had said you should have these blanks, right? You should be able to grab your gun, load it quick, know this, know that. Like, that's what you mean, spending time with your gun?
Yeah, to me, no, it's like anything else. Just go through the motions. So get out there every chance you get to shoot. In a safe environment where everything's controlled, so that you can just get used to that handling, the mechanical action, how all this stuff works. You're going to run into things that a lot of people don't realize. The gun's going to jam. You're going to have a misfire. You're going to have all these different things that are going to happen that need to happen, so that you can get a really good understanding of that.
Yeah.
And until you feel super confident that you can handle that thing top to bottom, don't start carrying it. I mean, in my opinion, don't conceal carry it. Like, it's because you're not going to be ready. Because what's going to happen is, they say you get in these crazy situations, and they say, the guy's going to rise to the occasion, or the lady's going to rise to the occasion. No, it's the opposite.
Yeah.
You're going to fall back on your training is what's going to happen.
Yeah.
You're not going to rise to the occasion. This isn't a freaking movie.
No,
You
you're
know?
exactly right.
So whatever that level of training is that you have, understand that that's what you're going to fall back to. So if it's little to nothing, that's what's going to happen. The gun's probably going to get taken from you.
Or get used on you.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to encourage people that listen to this to just say, look, do it, get in it.
Yeah.
If there's anything that we can help with, shoot us a message. I'll point you in the right direction. But get very comfortable with that piece before you start getting into that.
That's a fantastic message, and you remind me that my instructor that I had, he said that. He straight up said, this should be the beginning of you and your training, not the end. You got to, now it's on you, to go to the shooting rink, to put some rounds.
To spend the time. Yeah.
To spend the time.
Yep.
Huh.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great message. So good way to kind of finish it out, unless you guys got anything else. I'm hoping that really the whole point of this was that people will get some perspective, again, some common folk perspective from people who have grown up around it, from people who didn't get involved in it until they were, really at all until they were 18, 20 years old. You know, and just what it is for us in our day-to-day life. And it's nothing more than just another thing.
It is. You're exactly right. You reminded me of that little jingle. It's never too late to learn to read. Remember those commercials?
Yeah.
It's never too late to learn how to handle a gun.
Yeah.
You know, and I feel like it's a more welcoming community than maybe the picture gets painted. And so I don't want people to be intimidated. And I get it. Like, my experience is way different than most. Okay. And it'd be very easy to not be freaked out by guns, to just be like, oh, they're fine with my experience. But I understand that is probably, 90% of the population they don't grow up in a town of 200 people, on a farm outside of that.
Yeah.
So, like, I get it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Everyone
Good stuff.
comes from different spots, and
Mm-hmm.
to your point, I do truly feel that when you've said that a couple times now, that I think the industry, if people were to just walk in, I mean, people are super delightful at Cabela's, at gun stores. They're not going to be like, oh, you shouldn't be doing this. I truly believe what you're saying, and that it's probably changed in the last 15, 20 years for sure. And it shouldn't be that intimidating. So I'm even needing to probably take my own advice a little bit more and get outside more and take that initiative too. So
Next girls' weekend.
Yeah.
Girls' weekend, right?
Right.
Take them to the range.
yeah, that's what we should do.
Petties first.
Yeah, not Vegas.
Keep those nails short so
Yeah.
you can
Yeah, exactly.
get them in the...
Oh, geez.
All right, man.
Okay, well,
cool.
this was good.
Good
Thanks,
deal.
guys.
Folks,
All
we need folks to follow the show, like, subscribe, leave comments, do all the things, whatever the platform is that helps
It's
us out
growing.
a lot.
So huge to subscribe. Give us a like. Give us a follow. That's such a big deal. We're trying to grow. We're trying to get this message out there for all the common folks out there. And you're spot on, Ben. Just give us a like. Give us a follow. Help us in that mission.
100%. 100%. All right, cool. Well, you
All
guys
right,
done?
boys. Yep.
We're done. Thanks for listening, folks.
Peace.
All right, appreciate it.